G'day everyone, welcome to the Session Border Controller webinar today. So I'm Ty from Leader, head of the IP team, and we're going to be going through setting up the 3CX Session Border Controller, looking at how that can help you with your deployments, particularly if you've got customers out there, running 4G links and other services, may not have a static IP address or even a public-facing IP address for that matter. So we're going to go through the ways to deploy it and how to go about, getting all of that working. So first things first, what is the Session Border Controller? So I know a lot of you in the webinar today, from I can see the list of names here, have set it up before, but just learning about what it actually does and what the requirements are in terms of setting it up. So this is a great resource from 3CX. You can see here, I've got open the Session Border Controller, and I'll show that up on my screen now. You can see here that essentially the Session Border Controller page goes through all of the features of the SBC, what it does and what it's about. So essentially the biggest thing when you're deploying the 3CX PBX in the cloud is that your phones are all remote to the PBX. And a lot of people out there know that, when you've got lots of phones on a network connecting back to the PBX, you can end up with some firewall difficulties, okay, or things that certain firewalls can't handle the voice traffic very efficiently. So going about it in terms of finding a solution to that problem, that's where the SBC comes into play. A lot of other sites too, people are setting up where you've got the server on premises, or the server in the cloud and 4G on premises, such as the Teltonica router, may not have a public-facing IP, and that can be an issue as well. So going about setting it up certain ways that are going to eliminate any firewall problems you may have. So I want to go through today what the SBC does, what it's about, and then I want to show you through an install. So you can see here that I've got Hyper-V set up on my machine, and I've got the 3CX installer ready to go here. Now, same for all hypervisors and same as for a local install. So in terms of system requirements, SBC doesn't have very high system requirements. So Celeron NUC, or one of our SN4 NUCs, is a really good way to go about it. So if you go to the dealer shop here and have a look at our SN4 product, you can see here that we've got two of them. We've got a Windows 10 Home and Windows 10 Pro version. Now, this doesn't come without the OS, so you will need to purchase it with the OS, but can easily install the Linux version of 3CX on the this particular NUC, so for 347. If you want to use Windows, which is more than valid, if you've got a Windows environment, you want to stick to that path, you will need to increase the size of the storage in this box. So this has only got 32 gig of storage. A lot of people find that after doing the Windows updates on this box, and with a growth over time, that is obviously too small to handle the 3CX install, as well as the Windows updates and whatnot. So ask us about upgrading it to a 120 gig SSD in that. It's very cost effective in terms of getting that done. So these devices here, you will need the ISO file. So you can see here that I've downloaded the ISO file from 3CX. This is the same installer as the PBX. So if you've been installing it via the ISO before, you'll notice when you get to the end of the install that you get a question about what you're going to be using 3CX for. Is it the SBC or is it for the PBX? So I'll guide you through here. I've got a virtual machine running. I'm going to show you in Hyper-V now how to set it up. Then the instructions for the Linux version on the SN4, I'll take you through that as well, okay? So how to prepare the USB media for that. You can see here, if I go to new up the top, create a new virtual machine, click on next, give it a meaningful name. I'm going to call it 3CX SBC demo. Okay, click on next. Ask if it's a generation 1 or 2 VM. I'm going to use generation 1. How much memory I want to use. And I'd be looking at sort of 2 gig as a minimum. what network I'm going to be connected to. So obviously, if you've got a Hyper-V environment already, that you'll have, obviously a Hyper-V cluster set up properly with all the correct networking. This is just my local Leader workstation that I'm using. Next on that one, got to give the virtual hard disk a name and a size. 20 gigs going to be enough here for this. Using the Linux ISO, it's very small footprint. Click on next, okay, and then I'm going to pick my media. So I'm going to go to my operating system, install from ISO. It's going to be on my desktop of my computer, and I've got the ISO file here that I downloaded from 3CX in my customer area. Once I click next and finish on that and boot it, this is when I get the Debian installer boot menu. So few requirements here. This PC will require access to the internet during the install, number one. Number two, if you can replicate the client's environment in terms of the IP that the system is using during the install, then that's going to make it a lot easier for you, okay? There is an option to statically set the IP address during the install. So we recommend that you do that, okay? Don't use a DHCP assigned address for servers like this, because in 3CX later, we'll have to statically define where the SBC is. So I'll click next on that one in there, and that will start up and go through its install. So you can see here, my computer now is going through, grabbing all of the components from the ISO and starting that setup process. This process in total takes around 10-15 minutes. So on a fairly decent hardware box like mine, I think I'm running an i5 or i7, it should be fairly quick. Now, what I can do here is I can cancel this part of the network auto configuration. So you saw that I pressed spacebar on my computer, and I canceled the DHCP auto config. You might ask, why would I do this? Okay, the reason is this lets me now statically set that IP. So if I click on continue here, okay, and I've got an option to configure the network manually, okay? So you can see here, if I bring that up a bit bigger, configure the network manually, and I can click on enter, okay? And now that will let me put in an IP address that I can use for the SBC. So obviously here, if I go back out of here now, configure the network, find the right screen here, jump out of Hyper-V. I'm going to configure it via DHCP because I'm on the Leader corporate network. I'm going to click continue on that, put no domain name in, and off I go. You need to statically set the MAC address. Click enter on here. Go through this now. Okay, put my password in. Put my details in here. Let that spin through and do its thing. That will start the SBC up, okay? So that is going through now, doing its bits and pieces. We're going to use the entire disk, go through, install everything in one partition, finish partitioning, write the changes to the disk. So this is all the standard stuff in the install, okay? So go through and do that, all of our standard setup kind of options, if you like. That's going through and doing its thing. We'll go back to the SBC guide here, and we'll have a look at what the requirements are. So you can see here that I've got the 3CX VoIP server that might be in the cloud, on-prem, wherever. We've got obviously our internet here, and then we've got our other sites. So for example, if I've got two sites connecting to each other, or if I've got a site connecting back into the cloud, they use this thing called the tunnel, okay? So the tunnel is the same thing that your 3CX iOS or Android app uses to connect back to the PBX, and it's on port 5090. So you can see that port here is mentioned throughout all this. It's the same thing that the SBC uses. So the SBC will create a tunnel, just like a VPN, back to the cloud, okay? So you can see here, SBC uses remote sites, remote apps such as the Windows, Mac, or iOS client, and bridging the systems together. The part that most people get confused on that we need to sort of go through here is the firewall, okay? So let's say, for instance, we're talking about my Leader demo instance up here. So I've got my Leader demo PBX. This is set up in Lightsail via the PBX Express Wizard. how am I going to go about connecting up my SBC that I'm installing up now? So let's pretend I'm at Leader Office now, and we're going to deploy our phone system in Lightsail, and I want to deploy this SBC locally, so all the phones in our network in Vic can connect via my SBC back to Lightsail here, okay? So from here up to here. And you go to the firewall stuff here, and it can sort of seem a bit confusing. People can think that you have to port forward into the SBC, which is incorrect, okay? The only time 5090 needs to be forwarded in is to the PBX itself. So you'll know when you set up your Google Cloud, Amazon, or Lightsail instance that 5090 will be open to this box here. This is the virtual machine running in the cloud, not into my SBC. So this is perfect where you've got environments where you've got 4G connections behind double NAT. You've got all these different things going on. You don't have to worry about the ports. It's so simple. You just turn the SBC on and it will connect back to my cloud server here. Okay, so simple to set up. Can be great for telco people too. If you don't manage the network for the customer you're pitching the telephones to, you just do the phones. It makes it great because you don't have to talk to the IT people about getting the firewall open. So can kind of remove some of those battles as well in getting the job done really quickly. So you can see here that my SBC is going through and installing, downloading the files from 3CX and going about its thing. So if you've got at the moment clients running on Stun or using extensions that are local, how do you go about connecting them via the SBC? Okay, so there's two ways you can do it. If you connect this box here, okay, to this Leader demo and plug the phones in on the same subnet as the SBC, they will show up in the phones list here, okay? They'll all come up here. So then you can go about clicking on them, assigning them to an extension, and they will connect. Now, that sometimes may not work, and I'll tell you why. Sometimes the phones that you might receive from, Yealink, HTech, Fanville may not have the latest version of firmware on them, or maybe a little bit behind, in terms of the firmware on the devices. So how do you combat that? How do you go about setting them up and making sure they work off the bat? So really important that you check that your firmware is up to date on the device so it trusts the service certificate. So you can see up here at the top, I've got an SSL certificate here, up here, and you can see here that this certificate on this is actually signed by Let's Encrypt. Some of the older firmwares don't actually recognize that as a valid trusted root CA, and that's why it won't connect back to the PBX. So if you're having trouble assigning extensions and doing that there, that is most likely going to be the reason. If we go into the extensions here, and I know that I've got a few phones, dummy phones chucked on my extension. And if I go into here, I've got HTech 924, 926, and I've just got some dummy interfaces here and MAC addresses. So if we wanted to go about now connecting it up to the SBC, but in a manual way, okay? So we want to put the MAC address in, just like you would with a Stun extension, but do it via the SBC. I'll change it here now to SBC, and I'm asked these different questions. One question that comes up a lot is, why does this link here still point to the server in the cloud? I thought we were using the SBC. It doesn't make sense. The reason is simple. This link here downloads the provisioning to the phone and tells the phone, hey, the server's in the cloud, but I want you to use the following details here to connect via the SBC, okay? So obviously the MAC address of the phone will be unique to the phone that I've listed here, just like it normally is. The interface here is the fully qualified domain name of the 3CX host up here. And now it's got a box for session border controller. What do you put here? Simple. You put the local IP address of the SBC. Let's say the local IP address of the SBC is 192.168.1.254. Okay, so that will work like this. The phones on the local LAN will connect via this address, then through the tunnel on 5090 back up to my leaderdemo.3cx on light sale, encrypt the data between the two devices, all over port 5090. Okay. The port here, 5060, relates to the port that the session border controller here is listening on. Okay. Now I was watching up here while we're talking to see how our install's going. So the whole idea of fast class is to do it during the install, or do the install during the class, so we don't miss out on anything. So you can see here, I'm up to where we promised before, the question about what we're doing, okay? So you can see up here now, we've got, do we want to use the 3CX stable release, which is 15.5 Service Pack 6, or do we want to use the beta release, which is obviously 16, coming out very soon, or do we want to use the SBC? Simple, we just go SBC, okay, and click enter, or click on OK. Bang. That will now go through, it'll talk back to 3CX and say, give me the packages for the SBC, and it will go through and install those, okay? So that will pop through now, grab all of those, and then take us to the last part of the setup, okay, which is right now. Enter your 3CX FQDN, okay? Get the FQDN from here, okay? So you can see here it's telling us the management console, settings, network, FQDN. Now, we're obviously even smarter than that. We look up the top and we can see leaderdemo.3cx.com.au. So I go here, leaderdemo.3cx.com.au. Now, double check as you're typing in here, because everyone who calls us has made a spelling mistake or a typo in here. And Aaron and I look at it and look at it and look at it, and we find it. And there can be something so stupid like a capital letter, an I or a 1, something like that when we get to the password stage next. And it stumped us a few times. But yeah, double check your spelling in here. So I've got leaderdemo.3cx.com.au. Got no spaces at the end or anything silly. Click on OK. Enter the IP address of your 3CX system server. Okay, so if we go here and have a look at the network interface on this one, let's have a quick squiz here. I've got here under my network the options. You can see here I'm running version 16. It's not as fast for me, it's not as familiar. 10.0.4.5, okay? This is the local IP address of the 3CX server behind its WAN IP that it talks on, okay, of 13.1.70.151.91. So we'll chuck that in here, okay? 10.0.4.5, okay. Okay, enter your 3CX phone system port 5060. Yep, we're using 5060 for this install. So we click on OK. Enter the tunnel port 5090. No reason to change that. Click OK again. And now we get the tunnel password. Where is the tunnel password? So we go back to our 3CX management console. We scroll down here and we go across to security. So let's have a look here on my settings, and I'm looking at the big projector screen, so it's very blurry for me. Down the back, who needs glasses? We shoot across the tunnel, and we can see here I've got my tunnel settings. Now, if I click on that here, it'll give me a tunnel password. So I'll zoom in a bit so I can read it down the back, and I need to enter that now into 3CX here. So I put in HNDC, capital W, F, capital D, M, B, lowercase p, okay? So I've got that there, and I click OK. Okay, do you want 3CX to configure failover? So if, for example, you are running another 3CX box, okay, you can connect to a standby server. This is perfect if you're running Enterprise Edition or other devices, okay? We're not using failover. Go next. Okay, do we want to enable encryption? Absolutely. So we click on enable encryption. That'll encrypt the voice traffic between the two devices, being the SBC and the light sail server we have up here. So click on enter, enable. All right, happy days. SBC's up and running. You can now restart your IP phones and see them in 3CX. So if I had phones on my network here, ready to go, you'll see that my 3CX install's finished. This VM will run. Now, this can be on VMware. This can be on Hyper-V. It can be on an SN4 NUC. And a lot of people are pushing and doing the SN4 option, okay? Great way to go about it. Now, if you don't want to do Linux, or you not feel comfortable with it, or you just don't want to do it, no problems. You can install it on Windows as well. So I've downloaded the Windows installer here, and you can see this is the same setup, okay? This is really cool if you've got it in your lab or environment where you want to set up the SBC on a workshop computer and have a play with this, okay? You might not have Hyper-V installed. You might not have an SN4 lying around. You don't want to save the cost just to learn. This is a great way to do it. Download the SBC, click on next, accept the agreement, next, and install the SBC. This is the same questions I was asked here, okay, before. So exactly the same. leaderdemo.3cx.com.au, click on next, enable the failover, no, click on next, enter the tunnel password. So I go back into 3CX, okay, grab my tunnel password out of here, go up to here, type it in here, click on next, click on install, okay? And you can see it's as simple as that. That's installed there. Then for your phones, configure them via the SBC, and then they'll show up in 3CX. So they will show up here under phones once it discovers anything on the network. And likewise here, go through and then reprovision your handsets to use the SBC in here, okay, SBC, and put the local IP of the SBC in, Bob's your uncle. You do need to make sure though that if you are doing this, okay, that you do remember about the options in 3CX. So these are two very important options that need to be considered. Block remote tunnel connections. So this needs to be unticked, okay? So if you're going about setting the SBC up and using it, then that box there will need to be unticked. If you are migrating from stun, okay, from extensions that are using the stun setting in here, so I'll go back to phone provisioning. If you are using stun and you are using that, multiple phones behind a firewall, say you're having problems, you've got 10 or 15 phones, you're migrating to the SBC, then, you'll obviously change it to here to SBC and go about rebooting and reprovisioning the handsets. But you can also have a look at locking down your security a bit more by disallowing use outside of the LAN, and you can just use the SBC option here, unblock that. So it's a good way to create some better security by really limiting the exposure to that extension externally, as opposed to leaving it open for the whole world. So that's a brief introduction of the SBC. A few things to watch out for, which we covered. Obviously, the options here to make sure they're correct. Remembering the firewall rules here can be confusing, that you don't need to open the port into the SBC. Only 5090 needs to be open on the PBX side. So remembering that here, that these instructions are probably a little bit outdated for people who are deploying using PBX Express, because all the heavy lifting's done for you in terms of the firewall setup. So going about reading this carefully, we really know all we need to do is two things. We need to either pick between Windows or Linux, okay, Hyper-V, or whether we want to run it on an SN4 NUC, okay, and then going about installing it, and off you go. So does anyone have any questions for SBC or any things that we can go through now? Please reach out in the questions and we can cover those off, or any other material that you think would be helpful to learn more about the ways to deploy and maybe some of the use cases for SBC. No questions yet. Very good. I'll let you guys have a type away with those. Just want to remind everyone as well, we've got the Fanville webinar coming up. So we've got a launch for some of the new Fanville IP telephony, specifically not just more new phones, but looking at the new video conference or video door phone solutions and access control. So a good one to join. The phones are great. The IP security products are brilliant. So if you want to have a play with those and have a look at them, they'll definitely be at Expo, obviously, coming up. So if you haven't registered for Expo, www.leaderexpo.com.au. Come along to Expo. Fanville will be there. Okay. If you join us there, click on register now and come along. So Fanville will be there, Yaylink, obviously, and everyone else. And yeah, see some of the new products we're getting. They're really cool. All right, I've got some questions. So Luke Davis, how can we tell if the SBC is connected to the PBX? Okay, good question. There are 2 or 3 ways of checking, okay? Number 1, if it is connected and you plug an unprovisioned phone on your LAN, it will show up in here like it would if it was a local LAN connection. That's one way, okay? Second way is to go and have a look through the logs. Now, on the Linux machine, it's a little bit harder than going about it on the Windows box. You can see here the Windows box comes up with a whole list of logs in here, and you can see that obviously your device is connecting up. Now, mine won't connect here because it's blocked via the firewall for Leader, so that's why that is coming up with errors, okay? We've blocked 5090 outbound for connections because we don't use it, but this will come up and say, I am all connected and I am working. Is this intended for use when there are multiple offices or remote users? So the intended use scenario is this. It's intended for when you've got a server in the cloud, you've got multiple offices, say you've got 10 or 15 people at each office, and you want to have the server in the cloud for obviously the redundancy purposes. So if Office 1 loses its power, Office 2 can take the calls and vice versa. Then you can have 2 SBCs, one on either side, connected back into the cloud server. And it sort of eliminates the NATing issue you have when you've got multiple phones using stun. It also means that calls between extensions on the local LAN will be routed locally. They actually won't go out via the internet, okay? The signaling will, but the RTP or the voice traffic will be routed locally. So Michael's putting here as a supplementary question. Presume that there was only a single office. Would you just have a local install? Yeah, correct. So if you just had a single office, okay, and if I go back to here and have a look, if we just had a single office here, for example, Leader Demo is a company, and I've got an office in Vic that are running here with the SBC, and I say I've got 30 people here in Victoria. Some of the reasons for running the SBC would be to obviously, I might have 3 or 4 different links here. I might have an EFM, fiber, 4G, which we've got in Melbourne. If one of those links goes down, I still want to be able to talk to my customers. So rather than deploying 3CX here on the SN4, okay, and doing a local PBX install, the issue I'm going to have is that I can't get the firewall ports right because my 4G is behind a double NAT. My EFM service IP, say, is dynamic, for example, okay, and my fiber service is managed by some IT provider, and I can't get in touch with them to open the ports. Let's say I'm really stuck. All I do, I put the SBC in, talking back to the Amazon's install, okay? It eliminates all my firewall problems and my phones work. So, Michael, to answer your question specifically, I would just have one install of the SBC and then my server in the cloud. But you can see that it makes sense when you've got multiple links. You might be running Teltonica, you might be running different other services or multiple 4G services. You can't get a static IP. So going about it this way means you have the reliability of the cloud, okay, but with the ability to scale over multiple WAN links on premises. So guys, yeah, thank you for your time. Remember to register for the Leader Expo. Make sure you jump to our Fanville launch over here, okay? So we've got already got a few people registered. Really exciting new video security intercom products coming up. come to us for your SN4 opportunities with SBC. If you're not sure what to buy or what to upgrade the SSD to for Windows, definitely come to either Aaron or myself or your account manager, and they'll pop the question over and we can quote that up for you. So thanks a lot, guys, for joining us, and we look forward to seeing you guys at our next webinar. Thanks a lot.